another edition of Cool Cars, Interesting People. You're looking at a 1979 Panther Lima Turbo, and then you're looking at Juran Greene. This is one of those situations where the interesting person owns the interesting car. 1979 Turbo Lima, this is from England. Explain this car.
Well, with this car, the fellow that actually came up with the concept of building this car, his name was Bob Jinkle. And Bob Jinkle decided that he wanted to build cars. Now, when he first started out with these, he wanted something different. So what he ended up doing is stealing kind of parts of designs from other cars. Mm-hmm. Now, the front of this car itself is from a 1930 Jaguar. Okay, and from that point, he kind of copied that. And then he kind of went, well, I can't do the whole car like a Jaguar. So he went up to the middle part and decided, what can I do to make this car unique? So he decided, well, why don't I steal the tail end look of the MG? Right. So that's how this car was born.
And this was brought over to North America in the attempts of making this mass-produced, I would imagine. Wanted to sell it to everybody in North America, didn't work out. And now you own the only one of these in Canada, I understand, right?
I'm the only one in Canada right now, and it's pretty fun. Yeah. And the other fun part is finding parts.
But I imagine you get a lot of, when you're driving this thing, you get a lot of waves. People love to see you in this thing.
Oh, yes. My mother-in-law calls this car the sunshine car, the smile car, because everyone that sees this car, they smile and they wave, and, and it's like sometimes I feel like I'm part of the royal family because it's like, hey, I got to shift gears now. Hey.
So what attracted you to this vehicle? Why did you want it?
I wanted it because it's such a unique car. Yeah. And usually, as the fellows in the LeBaron Car Club that I'm the president for, they tease me about this car. They call it a kit car, and boy, and I come unglued. And then and because it's all hand built, right. But with a kit car, you're trying to fit that on a frame, so nothing lines up. And I said, well, you go out there and you find something that's not lined up on this car, then it'll be a kit car. And so when they came out and go, oh, this isn't a kit car. And I said, no, it's not. But, the fun part is driving it. Yeah. Yes, it's driving it.
And the top down, you look pretty good.
Oh, I tell you, the top down, the wind blowing through my hair, I mean my beard.
Yeah.
That part there.
Now, the bad news is, speaking of those parts, there's a parts that's missing. We can't drive this today, but we had a good look at it. So now, you want to just go for coffee so we can talk about you?
Well, we can talk about me, but yeah, the part that's missing right now is part of this speedometer and one of its components in there. Right. And with that piece off and the cable off, you have transmission fluid that will spear every place.
We don't want to do that.
And we don't want to do that.
We're environmentalists here. Indeed. All right, more with Juran Greene. Let's well, we won't get in that. We'll go for some coffee, right?
Oh, okay. We'll go for coffee.
Well, Juran, here we are, Juran Greene. We're here at the Travelodge Hotel. You said when anybody who lives in Lethbridge, this is the Park Plaza. We're in Cudo's Lounge. Welcome. And, I think of you and I think of your resume. I think of singer, Boy Scout master, bus driver. Meep, meep. But the biggest thing I ask myself is, how the hell does a guy from North Carolina come into a place like Lethbridge, Alberta? Where? Because that's where you're from, North Carolina, right?
Yes, I was raised in North Carolina. Yeah. I was born there in a little town called Williamston, North Carolina, which is only an hour and a half from the coast. So Cape Hatteras and the whole place, so East Coast. So when we had hurricanes, guess what? They used to wake you up in the middle of the night or the mornings.
You call them hurricanes.
Hurricanes, and you make sure that you were in a safe spot. Yeah. But the way I got here, it was a long route. Yeah. From North Carolina to 7 years in the Navy, from being stationed in Washington D.C. from Washington, D.C. to University in Bowie, Maryland.
Right.
From Bowie, Maryland to graduate school in Tallahassee, Florida. Tallahassee, Florida to Cleveland, Ohio.
I'm still not here in Lethbridge.
And Cleveland, Ohio to Lethbridge.
Wow, from Cleveland to Lethbridge.
Yes.
All right. Why? Why that one?
Well, the young lady that I married was a professor at the university.
Leslie.
Leslie.
Yeah.
And so I asked her to marry me after we dated for 5 years. And she said, yes, and it's about time you asked.
Oh, yeah.
And so one of the things we had decided to do is we were getting married, and I'll be here for 2 years. We'll be here for 2 years.
In Lethbridge.
And then we'll take off and head back to the States. And that was in 1988.
So it's a long planning.
It's a long plan.
Wow. So when you think about the 28 years you've been here, regrets about staying here all this time? Or
No, this has become home.
Yeah?
Both our families has asked if we're going to move back to the States. And, this is home.
Yeah.
We've been here both of us. This is the longest we'll ever lived someplace else besides where we were born.
Yeah.
And so this is home.
Yeah.
So we don't see ourselves going back.
And how many kids?
Leslie and I have 2 kids,
Right.
a boy and a girl.
Right.
And in my previous years, I have 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so yes, and one of them was Nakia.
Right.
And she would perform with New West. But yeah, she decided that she wanted to move back to the States.
Oh, okay. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
so that's where she is. She's around the Washington, D.C. area.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's take it back a little bit, because I know that you got drafted to go to Vietnam, 1969.
No, I was on the 1970 list.
1970 list.
Yes.
Because I can't imagine myself if I was 18 years old because that was one of those compulsory things.
Yes.
You're going to Vietnam, no
Regardless.
matter what. Yeah.
Regardless.
What was your mindset for that to get drafted and to know that you were going into the potential to go into a hostile territory to kill people?
Yeah. Well, it was pretty scary at
Yeah.
the time. I think because I just turned 19.
Yeah.
And I was at university at North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina, when I received my note, and they gave me a chance where it says selected service. So instead of them drafting me to put me in a certain unit, they gave me a chance to join where I wanted to go.
But it was still
still compulsory, because if I did not go, I was going to jail.
Isn't that? I mean, so when you think back about that, how fair was that? Or do you think about that at all? Or I mean, because I know it was big uproar. You think about Muhammad Ali saying, "I don't hate anybody there."
Yes. Well, it was one of those things. Being 19, I didn't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
So I decided, well, I'll join the service, but I'll join the Navy.
Right.
And I joined the Navy because I used to teach swimming. And so that's why I joined the Navy.
Wow.
I figure, hey, it's a lot of water out there. I can tread water for a long time. It's just you have to just watch out for sharks. That's all. And the frigid cold waters. Yeah. But other than that, that's why I joined the Navy.
But circumstances got to the point where you ended up not having to go serve in Vietnam. Is that correct?
Right.
And then, but you got to join with a choir.
Yes.
Because of your voice.
My ship was slotted to go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And in one of the training exercises, we lost 3 guys. One of the borderlines blew up on the ship. And me being just a fresh kid on the ship, and we had 3,000 people on the ship. And when this borderline blew up, the whole ship shook.
Yeah.
And I was standing beside this chief petty officer, and I said, "Chief," I said, "what would happen if the boiler blows up?" And he goes, "You see that flight deck? That it won't be there." And I was like, "What?" But 3 guys were killed, and they ended up pulling us someplace out of the Atlantic Ocean up to New York.
Right.
They never found out why the boiler line blew up or anything like that. So that pushed our date for departure for Vietnam for over 6 months. So that's what happened. And within that 6 months, I got in kind of some trouble.
Yeah.
I started a fight on the mess decks with the Marines.
What?
And they got kind of nasty about sailors, so I got kind of nasty about one of the Marines' mother. So a fight started, and they knocked me down. And as they were fighting, I crawled out from under the crowd, and I stood out in the hallway, passageway, and I watched everybody else fight.
Sounds like a scene from Laurel and Hardy or something.
And so what happened after that? When they came to arrest everybody, they were pulling people apart, and they said, "Who started the fight?" And everybody looked around, and they said, "That guy standing out in the hallway."
So you got into trouble. You went to the brig, right?
I went to the brig, and it's way down to the bottom of the ship.
Yeah.
And I mean, lonesome. Yeah. If you ever want to talk about lonesome, that is no friends, no sounds except the swishing of the water going past the bulkhead of the ship. And from there, I ended up in mess cooking. I got kicked out of mess cooking.
Perfect.
Because one of the cooks dropped a steak on the floor, put it on a guy's plate, and I said, "Don't eat that, that's nasty," and they kicked me out. Then I was put in the scullery cleaning plates.
Yeah.
And from there, I ended up with the second part of my punishment was what they call the mid-watch. And I had to stand on the fantail of the ship from 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning and watch for enemy aircraft or submarines or whatever.
Yeah.
And the morning that I ended up doing this, the wind was blowing in the spray of the ship. I looked like a chocolate glazed donut afterwards. So I'm taking a shower, and as I'm singing, finally somebody starts to yell, "Who the hell is that singing in there?" And I went, "Who the hell wants to know?" And from that point, we go back and forth with rhetoric, and finally the curtain flies back, and this guy goes, "Is that you singing?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." "Will you report to admin office after you finish here?" So I did. And when I walked in and I said, "Stephen, Apprentice Greene, reporting for duty," and this fella says, "Is that you we can hear singing?" I said, "Yes, sir." "What deck are you on?" I said, "I'm on the 4th deck, sir." "All the way down there and we can hear you all the way up here?" And I said, "I suppose so, sir." He said, "My name is Lieutenant Commander," and when he said commander, that's the only thing I heard.
Yeah.
My legs shook. I figured I was going back to the brig again, but he just so happened to be the chaplain. And he said to me, "I want you to sing at my church services on Sunday mornings." And it's, "Yes, sir, I come sing." And it's from 8 o'clock to midday every Sunday, I was singing in church services.
And so did that get you out of going to Vietnam then? Or
That got me out of Vietnam because what happened is he said to me, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, this is where, I got sent to." He goes, "No, you shouldn't be here. You should be in the Navy band, in the Navy choir." Right. And so I said, "Yeah, I think so." And he said, "Well, you look out for that. I think that's where you should go." So I ended up, without authorized leave, I went to Washington, D.C., and I auditioned for the United States Navy Band.
Nice.
In Washington, D.C., a presidential unit. And I ended up passing their audition, and I ended up coming back to Washington, D.C. I had a presidential clearance to sing at the White House, the Pentagon. I've been on floors in the Pentagon that people don't even know exist.
Wow.
That's how
Singing?
Singing. Because they couldn't get out. These are people that stay there, and they're working 24 hours a day. So Christmas, they don't leave.
So you come in and sing Christmas carols?
Yeah, we would
Really?
go take a Christmas concert to them.
Wow.
In the bottom of the Pentagon.
So you've been to the White House. I mean, you sang to, what, 4 presidents?
Yes.
Wow.
I sang for Nixon
Yeah.
and Ford and Carter and Ronald Reagan just
Wow.
before I was leaving.
Did you get to meet them at all, or is that?
Well, I met Nixon. It was pretty interesting because we did a show at Watergate.
What, the Watergate Hotel?
Watergate Hotel.
Were you being recorded?
Well, actually, it was at the Kennedy Center.
Oh, wow.
And the Kennedy Center is right out the back door of Watergate.
I didn't know that.
And so we did a performance there on Wednesday night. And on Thursday morning, they had the Watergate break-in. So I used to tell people we were the distraction for them to break into the hotel on Thursday morning.
Wow, really?
And that's when Nixon
that's the whole start of it.
That's the whole start of it. Wow. But I met Nixon through different concerts that we used to do.
Are they just shaking hands, talking?
And they were just shaking hands and everything. Yeah. And Ford was an interesting guy. I didn't like him too well, but I can say that because we were singing for King Hussein of Jordan and for Henry Kissinger at a stake function. And I had 2 solos to sing. And after that, King Hussein of Jordan came down and shook my hand. And then he went and he shook all the other guys' hand. And then from there, Henry Kissinger came down and he shook everybody's hand. He got to me and he goes, "I love your singing." Oh, and he shook my hand. And President Ford came. He shook everybody's hand until he got to me. And he got to me and he patted me on the shoulder like this and rubbed my head. But he shook the guy's hand next to me. And the tears started to roll out of my face, on down my cheeks. And the lieutenant is looking at me going, don't, because he knew I was very vocal about people being prejudiced.
This was a prejudice move? Is that what that was?
In the South, when I was growing up, when a white person patted you, it was like patting their dog.
Wow, really? So this was very, he did this for a reason.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he shook everybody's hand except mine. But he patted me on the shoulder and rubbed my head.
Oh my God.
And the lieutenant just kept shaking his head, please don't, because, even to utter a threat against the president of the United States, that's jail. You get sent to prison.
Wow.
And so
you were ready to say something, right?
I was going to say something, and he's shaking his head, please don't. And I got put on report afterwards because I told him, I said, somebody needs to get him for that. And he goes, you stop saying things like that. That's the threat against the president. So when I said, I'm going to write a letter.
I'm going to call Squeaky Fromm right now.
Wow,
I can't believe that. Just blows me away. A president would do that.
Yeah.
To a black man.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was my experience with.
What about
him.
Carter?
Carter, it was neat going to the White House with the Carters.
Yeah.
The group I was in was called the Sea Chanters, and we were 16 of us, and I was the only black person in there, so I stood out like a fly in milk. But we would do their. So we would do,
I've never heard that.
Okay. We would do special, concerts for the dignitaries out on the yacht, on the presidential yacht down the Potomac River.
Oh my God.
And so we would do that, and the Carters were fantastic. You met them all, Miss Lillian, and Amy at the time, she's just a little redhead kid, cute as a button. And Rosalind, I was in love with her.
Oh, yeah.
I thought she was a very nice-looking woman and everything. And Jimmy, President Carter, he was very soft-spoken.
Yeah.
And but things would change when his brother would come visit. Billy would come and just show up on the bus. And the Greyhound bus station was only less than a half a mile away. And Billy would walk to the White House and try to walk through the front gates. And nobody knew he was coming, so it was pretty interesting.
So Reagan was just coming in. Did you get a chance to meet him?
I met Reagan at Bob Hope's 72nd birthday.
Wow.
And we were singing at the Kennedy Center, and I was performing with Elizabeth Taylor. I was performing with Miss Piggy. And
You're just name dropping left and right here. Wow, that's amazing.
And I was standing on stage when this lady poked me in the stomach and told me to lose weight. And she said, "You need to lose weight. You need to lose weight." I didn't know who she was. And she goes, "You need to lose weight." And I'm looking at her going, "Okay, little Spanish lady, leave me alone." And she looks around at Elizabeth Taylor, that's standing over from me, and she called Elizabeth Taylor a fat pig. And so they were about to go to blows on this. And so Elizabeth Taylor's daughter gets her mom settled down. And I finally said to one of the guys, I said, who's this little skinny lady that keeps poking me in the side and the stomach and everything? Well, that's Charo.
Oh, Charo.
I said, Charo?
Coochie, coochie.
I said, who the heck is Charo? And so then they explained to me, that she was from the Love Boat.
Well, it's amazing what kind of experience, the stages that you've performed on and the people you perform for.
Boston Pops.
Boston Pops?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, did you get to do solos and things like that?
No, singing as a group. We would do small shows and traveled and everything.
That must have been thrill. Those are thrills.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. I look at it as a more or less a little country kid from North Carolina, and the people that I performed with, and like with Henry Ford, and he was Reserve Navy. Cool guy.
Henry Ford is in the guy that makes cars?
Oh, well.
Or the son of?
One of the folks along the way. And from there, you end up, and that's how I met Reagan at the time.
Right.
Is doing a concert.
Right.
Telly Savalas, didn't like him too well.
No.
He blew cigar smoke in my face because he thought I was trying to get an autograph. And I just wanted to talk to him about the show he was on. And so I didn't like him too well. And Miss Piggy, you're gonna love this story. I don't know if you can print it or not.
Yeah, we're not going to print anything. We're just going to have it on video.
Well, Miss Piggy kept missing her cue when the concert band was playing.
What a pig.
And and they were starting the music up, da 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 da, and she's supposed to come and sing. Well, she would miss the cue. And finally, this conductor, and I think it might have been Oscar Fiedler, and he said, Miss Piggy, you missed the cue again. That's the second time you missed the cue. And it was all quiet, and all of a sudden you hear this voice say, it wasn't what you said last night. They had to take a break for 20 minutes because the band wouldn't stop laughing. And the two old men would go, that's a good one, Piggy. That's a good one. All the fun stuff.
When you think of all those experiences, is there one that just stands right out as the pinnacle of, when you're saying to yourself, oh my God, I have to pinch myself at this one?
Well, I think any time that I ended up doing a concert, especially, with the different movie stars, like Burl Ives, I had to go pick him up at the airport.
Really?
And I couldn't get a Navy car to pick him up that afternoon. So I took my 1966 Chevy Nova two-door. And so, you're so used to seeing Burl Ives in a movie, and when he was in, what was the one, he had the cottonmouth moccasin snake wrapped around him.
I don't know.
I can't remember that movie now, but I thought, the movie star that they had there with him was taller. So I thought, okay, this guy's probably my size. Well, I'm at the airport and I'm holding this sign, Mr. Burl Ives, and this guy's coming down in Ronald Reagan's airport. It used to be the national airport then. He's coming along, and this guy is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and now he's standing in front of me, and I go, Mr. Ives, I'm here to pick you up. And he goes, okay, my name is Burl Ives. And I'm looking at this guy going, wow,
Hey, that's cool.
And so we had to fit him into my car.
He's a big guy.
Oh, he was a big guy.
Yeah.
So he was like 6'2",
Wow.
and every bit of 300 pounds. And,
Wow.
and he had a wardrobe trunk that wouldn't fit in my car. So we had to strap it to the back of the car and tie it down. And he's the first person that introduced me to Scotch.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Ives.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Are you been a Scotch drinker ever since?
No.
Oh. You introduced him, he didn't like it.
Yeah. And I performed with him. We did Christmas, what they call Christmas by the Sea. I performed with Kenny Rogers. We did Easter by the Sea. And Kenny Rogers got sick. We were on a whaler out in the Pacific Ocean, and he had just got his first Grammy.
Oh.
And so they flew him in from Vegas to be on board. And so got a chance to meet Kenny and talk with him, and thought he was a cool guy.
Was that Lucille he won the Grammy for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from there, you know, Perry Como, and
Perry Como,
you know, and really
Catcher,
cool guy,
Falling
you know.
Yep.
And Debbie Boone when she was 14 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
You light up my life, Debbie
Yeah,
Boone.
that was her big. That was her big hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've had a pretty remarkable career.
You know, I have to stop every now and then and go, wow.
Yeah.
I have been places and done things, and it's like, how cool could that be?
So from the Kennedy Center to the Yates.
To the Yates.
Wow.
Doing shows at the Yates. Yeah. Yes,
I
indeed.
mean, obviously the you know the entertainment part of you had to keep on going. So when
it still goes.
So that's
yeah.
You do you enjoy? I mean, it's a smaller kind of venue. It's a different vibe, but it's still part of you.
It's still part of me, you know, and I'm glad because I was on the go a lot, especially when I got out of the Navy. I was always gone.
Yeah. And
so being in Lethbridge, I slowed down a lot, you know, from being the manager of the Empress Theater in Fort McLeod, and from working with the city of Lethbridge as a transit driver and school bus driver, from working with Scouts Canada, you know, and now being retired, I'm still just as busy because with the car club, LeBaron's Car Club, I'm the president of the club. So we just finished our drag racing we hadn't done one in probably 30 some odd years.
Yeah.
And so we did one.
Yeah, it was success.
It was a very good, successful thing. And in a few weeks, we're going to have our 55th anniversary and our 11th car show. Every 5 years they have been doing one.
Yeah.
And the first one they ended up doing was at Japanese Gardens.
Sure.
55 years ago.
Nice.
And so we are going to revisit that. And our car show is August the 21st. I started registration at 9 o'clock that morning at Japanese Gardens.
Fantastic. That's cool. I have to ask, turning, you know, I think about Black Lives Matter, what's going on in the States, and I think about you being a black man in Lethbridge. I would imagine very little, I mean, racism, I don't imagine you would encounter much of it here. But did you encounter much of it other than like Gerald Ford?
Yeah.
Was that an issue for you growing up, being in the South where you were? Were there things that you couldn't believe happened?
Well, as my mom used to say, and words I used to usually try to make sure I listen to, when you run into situations, sometimes you have to control yourself to keep from going, you know, further. I remember her saying to me once, "You don't grow old being a fool."
Right.
So, you know, you end up in a spot that you're in, and all of a sudden it's like, "Boy, what are you doing here?" And usually I will make a joke out of it, and I will get people laughing, and then I will leave.
Right.
And so that's how I got out of situations. I have, even in the Navy, we were on tour. We were in Mississippi. And I was out jogging one morning, and I had a guy and his buddy try to run me over with his pickup truck.
Because you were black?
Because I was black. They chased me through the graveyard. They couldn't catch me because I was running through the tombstones. And I run back out over the wall. It was probably about, you know, a 4-foot wall I jumped over. And I'm back on the main street, and I run to a gas station. And I asked the guy, I said, "Can you help me? These guys in this pickup are trying to run me over." And the first thing the guy said is, "Leave, I don't want any trouble." Yeah. It's like, what trouble? They're trying to run me over, you know? And after that, say for instance, I was in Washington, D.C. When I was in the Navy. I was going to visit Herman Boone. And Herman Boone was my football coach back in the 60s. And Herman Boone is the movie star. Denzel Washington that they made Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
So that was my football coach.
Wow.
In North Carolina. So I was going to visit him to go see him at the school and to visit the Titans. And I got pulled over, and the two policemen asked me, why was I in that neighborhood? And the one guy had his gun just about out of his holster, and then they told me that my car was seen at a robbery at a 7-Eleven. And I looked at the guy and I said, how many 66 powder blue Chevy Novas do you think is around here? And he goes, no, we're pulling you over because you were involved in a robbery. And I said, sir, no, I'm not. I said, I'm going someplace. He said, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to the high school to talk with Herman Boone. Oh, Herman Boone. Well, okay, well, let us check your registration and we'll see. So they checked my registration, and just about an hour later, they let me go.
An hour?
Yeah, on the side of the road, an hour. Wow. Yeah. So those type of things here run in only slight things where people yell something out the window. In 1988, my first time walking down 6th Avenue, and I had someone yell at me at 6th Avenue and 5th Street South. And a bunch of guys decided that they thought it was funny, but they didn't think I would say anything back. But the words that came out of my mouth, now all of them wanted to jump out of the car to fight.
Right.
And then they probably didn't realize how big I was at the time. And I told them, I said, if you want to fight, I said, you guys might beat me up, but you guys are not going to be happy.
Wow.
You're not going to be happy. And every now and then you run into people like that. You know, even in Fort McLeod when I worked there, I ran into it a lot because it's like, what are you doing here? You know, type of thing. It's work.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm going for. I go to work and I go to work with people. I don't care what color you are.
Yeah.
And right now, these things that's happening in the States has been happening for years,
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah.
But now everybody has a phone.
Right.
Everybody has a camera, and they videotape everything.
Right.
And these people are being caught.
Yeah.
They're not getting away with it.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
Yeah.
It's still scary.
Let me throw out this one name, and then let me hear your reaction. Trump.
Trouble. I think he's, at first, everybody thought he was entertaining. But when they finally figured out that he was for real, that has scared a lot of people, that it would hurt the trade, and especially here in Canada. Other foreign countries would go on bans because I think the words and the things that he says, he's trying to put into action, and that makes him dangerous.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the way I feel.
Sure.
And you know, I sympathize with the people down there. I talk to my relatives all the time about it, and they're just afraid. They're just afraid that such a person is going to take over and actually just about go back to slavery.
That is scary. That is trouble.
Yeah. Scary.
Let's be happy. Everything is good for you right now. Loving life in Lethbridge. You're in Hippodrome. You're singing. You're entertaining. You're still doing stuff.
I'm still doing stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's like between motorcycle riding, or jumping in the sports car, or just going.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the biggest thing. I still perform at weddings. I sing for people, sing for funerals and everything. Years ago, when I had a lung operation, my doctors told me that I would never sing again. And I couldn't talk at the time. Could you imagine me not being able to talk?
No.
So I wrote on a piece of paper, I said to him on this piece of paper, if I'm able to draw any kind of breath whatsoever in the future, I will sing. And since then, my doctor has looked at me several times and he goes, you're just a Superman. Because he said, what you have gone through with your lungs and your voice box, you shouldn't be able to do this.
Wow.
Yeah, but guess what?
You're doing it.
I'm doing it.
Let's do this song. Old
Man River, that old man River, he must know something, but don't. See, you got me all mixed up.
The old man, let's sing, wrap it up. He just keeps rolling
along.
Juran Greene, I will shake your hand. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mark.